For more on this, let's bring in Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullin, a member of the Armed Services Committee. Thank you so much, Senator Mullin. You know, let me ask you, first of all, your reaction to this sad news today that these hostages were found brutally murdered.
Well, Anita, I had the pleasure of meeting with Hirsch's parents not too long ago, and it breaks your heart. As a parent of 6, you just can't imagine what they're going through. At the same time, this is, you're dealing with a terrorist organization, and Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization. Is going to do whatever it can to get the rise out of the people to look for a deal. Right now, Hamas is fighting for survival. And unfortunately, if you allow them to survive, they're going to come and do this again at some point. I wish we could find an end to this war, but Hamas could end this war anytime they wanted to. Hamas could also release those hostages anytime they wanted to. And I guarantee you, if they were to release the hostages, the war would end. But this is squarely on them. No one pulled the trigger. No one killed those individuals except Hamas, because they're a brutal terrorist organization. It's what they do.
You heard in Trey Yink's report, and we are hearing from the Israeli military, that Hersh Goldberg Poland and the other hostages who were killed were likely alive just hours before, at least 24 to 72 hours before they heard Israeli soldiers coming. And that's when they were brutally killed. Your thoughts on that, and do you know any more about that?
Well, we do know that there was proof of life that Hamas had provided, showing supposedly that they were still alive when the negotiations were still going on. This is always a fear when you're dealing with hostage release or hostage rescue, that you're afraid that their captors, in this case a terrorist organization like Hamas, would do such a thing. And it's something that you have to deal with in war, and I hate it, but it literally just turns your stomach, especially for Hirsch's parents. I'm telling you, there was no one more active, no one more calm and collective, but never stopped. They were always in the halls, either in the Senate or on the House side, just bringing awareness to these hostages. They always wore the tape on their shoulder, and each day that tape changed with the new day that they were waiting on Hersh to be released. And so I don't have any specific details. I haven't been briefed on this. I've been called back. I'm supposed to get briefed on this Wednesday back in D.C. So I'll probably have more information on Thursday about this.
You also may have heard in Trey's report, he mentioned that there were a number of hostages slated to be released in the first phase of a peace deal that was on the table. And our understanding is that Hersh Goldberg Poland was one of those hostages scheduled to be released. Given what's happened now, what is the status of any peace deal and further release of hostages? And you saw the pictures there of the protests on the ground in Israel, people calling for a ceasefire and a release of these hostages. What role does the U.S. play in this?
Well, Anita, we could play a very strong role if we were actually having, for our foreign policy, was peace through strength. If we had President Trump, and I'm trying to be too political here, but I don't believe this attack would ever taken place if President Trump was in office, because we have a weak administration. We really don't have a strong hand to negotiate with. Unfortunately, who makes this decision is Hamas. As I said before, Anita, Hamas could end this war anytime they chose to. They could release those hostages anytime they chose to. And by the way, when they decided to release those hostages, I would almost guarantee you that the war would end at that time. Hamas is the one that's choosing to continue to fight. Israel's still trying to defend themselves to make sure this something like this never takes place. Who else could play a role in this is Iran. Keep it in mind, Iran is the head of the snake. Iran is the individuals that could actually put pressure on Hamas too by simply not funding them. And so the people at the weakest at the table, unfortunately, is because of the administration, is America. We're the weakest at the table. And the two strongest individuals at the table, if they chose to be, would be the two fighting. That's going to be Hamas and Israel. But it takes two people to negotiate, and Hamas is not willing to negotiate. To go back to what you said earlier, Anita, there was 3 individuals that were on the list, and Hersh was one of the individuals that was on the list to supposedly be released. At that time, there was some doubt if he was still still alive or not, because remember, you can't trust a terrorist organization. That's when proof of life was given to show that he was still alive, and that's how we know that he was alive prior to this last push by Israel.
Yeah. It is just terribly tragic that he was so near to be released, and then this happened. Brian mentioned there are still at least 101 hostages remaining, 7 Americans. Right. So, our prayers, people all over the world, their prayers are with the hostages and their families, and hoping for some kind of a peaceful resolution soon. Senator Mark Wayne Mullin, we thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me on.